What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, you started doing some research on something that was supposed to be an episode of our Patreon show, The Quick and the Weird, but you ended up finding so much weird shit.
I did.
Yeah, that we just had to make a regular show of it. Tell us about what you found. It sounds like Mothman's back and he has a new home.
Well, so this whole thing started, one of our listeners sent me a link to an article about a recent Mothman sighting. So shout out to Morgan. Thank you for sending that along.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah. Super cool. I always love when people send me wacky story links too. So for anyone who's listening that's on Twitter, please continue to send me those things if you come across them. But this was, I read the article and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to make a quick and the weird about this. And for people that don't know, I should probably explain quick and the weird. What's quick and the weird? It's we have a Patreon account. You may have heard us mention it on the show. But on Patreon, we have started doing this new series called The Quick and the Weird, where every week we take something that is it's not a big enough story to cover or to take up a full episode. So we devote 15 to 20 minutes or however long it takes. I think the last one was like a half hour. But we look at these like one-off stories or just like a something that's just like a one-time event or a small event. But once I started reading about this Mothman, and I had heard of the Lake Michigan Mothman, and that's related to this. And we're actually going to be doing a Lake Michigan Mothman episode sometime in the near future. But I want to talk about this one because it's so recent, and really it from this story that was sent to me, I ended up going into a little bit of a rabbit hole and kind of looking at all these weird things that are happening around Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. So the story in question that Morgan sent to me was about a Mothman sighting that occurred towards the end of July of this year, 2021, in case you're listening from the future. It happened on July 22nd, and what initially happened was there were 3 people who witnessed it, and what they saw was this. At first they took to be a man in dark clothes just off the side by the fence of the airport. And they said he was between 6 and 7 feet tall. And they thought that it was weird that, for one, this dude was super tall, but that he was wearing all black and he was on the ground at the airport. And they were working in the United Cargo Sorting Facility, which is interesting because it seems like the United Cargo area is, for some reason, a hotbed for activity. But I'll get into that more later. But these 3 workers in the area were on their break, and they were heading to their car, and they see this figure off in the distance. And they were worried because it looked like he was starting to approach one of the runways. So they were worried that he was going to, get hit by a plane or something. And he wasn't. Like I said, they thought he was wearing all black. So they just thought it was like this weirdo who was running around like Phantom of the Airport. But they ended up keeping an eye on it. They were kind of observing and talking about it amongst themselves when all of a sudden these vehicles came up, a couple of SUVs with the emergency lights going on the top, and they stopped right where this figure was, and 2 guys jumped out of the SUVs and shined flashlights on this figure. And once they shined the flashlights on him, the three people that witnessed it said that this person, well, up to that point, what they thought was a person, turned around and they saw these two large glowing red eyes looking back at them.
Oh, no.
But they said that the eyes, they couldn't tell if the eyes were giving off light or if they were reflecting the light of the flashlights. But they said either way, there were these really big eyes that were seemingly glowing red in one way or another. They said as soon as this happened, another vehicle rolls up and shine their headlights on the figure. And one of the witnesses remembers hearing their friends say, "Lord have mercy," when the lights appeared on this thing.
Oh, God.
And they said it appeared to have dark gray or black skin and what looked like a huge pair of bat wings.
What?
And after it was illuminated by the headlights, it jumped up, flew into the air, and started flapping its wings. And it flew over all the people that were on the ground. And they said it let out this screech that sounded like the brakes on a train. Like think of like in a movie or a cartoon, whenever they have to slam on the brakes and you just get that really loud screech. That's what they said it sounded like.
Whoa.
And then it flew around the area twice in a big circle, screeching the whole time. And then it flew out over the fence and toward the runways and the terminals in the airport. And then they lost sight of it.
Holy shit.
And as it was flying away, another white pickup truck with the TSA emblem on it rushed up to where they were. And it told them and other people who had ended up gathering in the parking lot to get inside, leave the area immediately. And so then everybody dispersed at that point. And then they saw another 3 TSA vehicles and then a bunch of unmarked vehicles all turn on these emergency lights and start looking around the area. And
that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. And well, I guess there were other agents TSA agents that ended up showing up to other areas or other buildings around that area and told everybody to stay inside.
Wow. Okay. I got to ask. I mean, I love this story. I want this to be true. In my mind, it's going to forever be true. But where is this being reported? Because it sounds like creepypasta. It's so key to being eerie.
All right. So the witnesses were all, they all work for the United Cargo Sorting Facility. They were all witnessed separately, or all interviewed separately by a researcher named Manuel Navarrete, he's been doing a lot of research into the Chicago / Lake Michigan Mothman. So he's been actually doing a lot of interviewing of witnesses that have been seeing things in and around the area. But he said that he interviewed. What happened was one of the witnesses reached out to him because of the research he had been doing and shared the story. So then he reached out to the witness and then ended up setting up separate interviews with the other 2 witnesses that were with the first witness. And they were all telling basically the same story. They were telling it from different points of view because one, obviously there was one person who spotted it and then called the attention to it. So you had these other 2 people that, hadn't been the initial witness, but they still were there and saw the whole thing. But they all reported the same story with TSA coming in and it flying off and the screeching. They all described the gray or black skin. They all described the wings. They all described the eyes.
All individually?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And all of them also said that they couldn't tell if the eyes were glowing or reflecting light. All 3 of them made a point to mention that. And they estimated that the wings were between 10 and 12 feet wide.
Whoa, dude.
But they describe its takeoff differently from the Mothman, because if you remember, the initial reports of the Mothman said it took off like a helicopter. And here they're saying that it took off by flapping its wings to get into the air.
I mean, are they just saying like a helicopter because it flew straight up and hovered for a second before taking off, or it spun around in circles? Because I've never heard that.
Yeah, that's... I think that's what the initial witnesses reported, was that it spun like a helicopter to get up into the air, and then it flew once it was up in the air. But I remember her saying it spun like a helicopter to take off into the air. Or this particular sighting of the Mothman has been part of an ongoing chain of events. You're familiar with Lon Strickler of Phantom and Monsters, right?
Yeah.
He looked into the case as well, and he actually had connections within the airport that he reached out to, and they reported back to him on August 4th that his source, he's claiming, is a ground supervisor for one of the airlines that flies through O'Hare. And over the past 2 weeks, so this would be the end of July and going into August, there were several sightings of a Mothman-like creature on the grounds of the airport. And he said none of them have been officially reported, but they're just they're sightings that other employees that work there have seen and, kind of talked amongst themselves.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think during the Gargoyle episode, Chicago had a sighting, right? Is that where that one that flew down and attacked took place?
I don't recall.
I'll have to look.
Yeah.
That's a scary ass story, dude.
Yeah, and like I said, that's just one of many. I mean, there's in addition to the Mothman. Well, I'll just give you a quick. There's literally like the list of sightings is just unbelievable. How long it is, but I'll give some brief descriptions of things that happened over the past year. July, there was a 6-foot tall creature that was seen flying through the sky. On October 5th, there was a sighting of a tall creature with bright red eyes and large wings spotted near O'Hare Airport. On November 26th of 2020, there was a 7-foot tall person with wings who was spotted again flying outside of O'Hare. On December 3rd of 2020, there was a red-eyed flying man who was spotted by a security guard at O'Hare International Airport. And on December 6th, 2020, there was a red-eyed winged humanoid once again spotted flying near O'Hare International Airport.
I think this O'Hare is going to be turning out to something like Denver International Airport.
Except Denver doesn't have cryptids and UFOs. It just has like weird tunnels and scary art.
Maybe it's the same type of facility that's maintained its secrecy.
Maybe they're connected underground and they're shipping Mothmans.
Dun dun dun.
They're shipping the Mothmans. It's like O'Hare is going to be like the fucking Twilight Zone movie, and there'll be Mothman on the wing. William Shatner's going to freak the fuck out.
That'd be awesome.
How awesome would that be if William Shatner was on a plane when that actually happened and he's like, oh my God, it's real.
He just looks out the window and goes, oh no, oh no.
Just screams con for no apparent reason.
That's the only thing he could do.
Yeah. Yeah. But in addition to Mothman being spotted here, there's also other things going on. There's a story from early 2020, July 23rd, 2020, of this weird UFO incident. Again, it was reported by a worker at the airport who was working overnight. It doesn't say where he was working though, so I don't know which part of the airport he was working in. It I was hoping that it would be united again, just because that ties in with other stuff that happened, but it doesn't say. So I'm going to pretend that he was also working in the United area, but I can't confirm that. It's just what I hope. So therefore, in my head, it's the case. Draw your own conclusions, though. But his story is that he was on break at 1 a.m., so he was working third shift, and he was on the phone with his girlfriend, and he sees this thing flying over him, and he said it was completely silent, but it was extremely bright. And as it was flying, there were shafts of light that were coming off of it, and he said landing on the ground, and it was moving really fast, and then it stopped over this area. And he said the area, there's this place in the O'Hare Airport that has an old cemetery, and it's not well known, but there's this old cemetery that for some reason exists within the grounds of the airport. And the area where this thing stopped was right above the old cemetery. And he said all of a sudden from the bottom of it came this bright, what he described as being a super bright spotlight that came down from the craft or whatever it was towards the ground. And he was some distance away, but he said he saw something rising up off the ground and it disappeared into the craft. And he said it looked like it could have potentially been a person, but I gotta wonder what a person would be doing in this old cemetery at 1 a.m. What if they're like pulling a Dr. Frankenstein and they're just taking dead bodies out of the ground and creating weird monster zombie people?
You know, that's a possibility. What if they're just taking dead bodies, recently dead bodies, to resume their experiments when they can't get a clean abduction, a clean getaway?
Well, this wouldn't even be recent bodies because it's an old cemetery. It's not even, it's not used anymore for burying people.
What if they were picking up one of their fellow aliens?
Yeah, just pick me up at the old cemetery. I'll be waiting there. And just flies over and grabs them. Maybe that was the case. And I mean, actually, so I've got a story that I'm going to tell, another story that could kind of tie in with that, because so on July 31st in 2020, there was this truck driver who was pulling into, once again, the United Cargo facility, and he said it was around 10 o'clock, and he was going to the dock waiting to be loaded up, and he saw what at first he took to be a child walking in this area. It's a grassy area that's lit by streetlights, and he was thinking to himself, it'd be kind of weird to have a child out 10 o'clock at night wandering around by itself at the airport, especially at a loading dock. It doesn't make sense. So he figured maybe it was another truck driver who was taking a walk, and maybe just the distance made him look like he was a child, or maybe it was just a short guy, who knows. But he was watching him just because it looked kind of weird. And he said as the figure was getting closer, he noticed that it was really skinny and small, but it had this weird way of walking, like it was almost limping. And he noticed that it had these long, skinny arms that hung down almost to its knees and what appeared to be a big head. But he couldn't really make out all the details, so he was still kind of just watching what was going on. And within a minute or so, he said that there were two trucks that ended up passing by on the road next to where this figure was. And it didn't seem like the trucks that passed him noticed. And then the figure continued to walk, and it walked past this area, the control tower area. So there was a lot of activity going on there, but no one seemed to take notice of this figure. And then it walked directly under a streetlight. And it was then that he saw that it appeared to be completely naked. He didn't see any clothes. And it was under the street light. It looked gray and had this big bulbous head. And he was afraid that it started moving towards the fence. And he was afraid that it was going to move towards this plane that was on the other side of the fence that was maneuvering. So the trucker at this point decides to get out of the truck and get a closer look, still thinking that it's a small child that got lost and wanted to make sure he was okay. So he got out and started to walk towards it. And as he was walking towards it, it seemed to notice him. So he called out to it and he didn't get a response, and it continued to walk away from him. So he started to move closer and closer to it. And as he got closer, he realized that it wasn't a child after all, but he didn't know what it was. So he called out again, and it turned around, and he saw that it had these huge, what he described as almost bug-like eyes that were completely black. And it looked gray, and it had a big-ass head, and it was naked. And he said before he could get any closer, the thing took off. And keep in mind, he said as it was walking, it looked like it was limping. But he said when it took off, it ran faster than anything he had ever seen move. He said without question, it could have outrun an Olympic sprinter. And it was gone, at least in his memory, it was gone in the blink of an eye. And the next thing he knows, someone's knocking on the side of his truck telling him to come inside and sign his paperwork. So he ends up getting, this was his report, basically the way that I just described it. And that's where it ends, is that it ran away faster than anything. And then he gets wakened. Something wakes him up by knocking on his door. And then he realizes that it's the people telling him his paperwork is done.
I kind of noticed that he just appears in his truck, or there's no talk of him going back to his truck.
Right. So this Navarrete guy ended up interviewing this truck driver as well. And he got some more detail on what happened. And he specifically asked him what happened after the figure ran away. And he said he has no memory of walking back at that point. And he recalls he remembers everything up to the figure running away from him. And then he remembers waking up. And he had thought at the time that only 10 minutes had passed, because that's about how much time it usually takes to get everything in order. But then he found out once he went in to sign the paperwork for his load that his cargo had been ready to go for an hour, and he couldn't account for that missing hour.
And they just let him snooze there for an hour?
Or maybe he wasn't there for an hour.
Ooh.
Because he remembers chasing this thing, and then once it took off, he has no memory until he woke up again in his truck.
Wow.
And this particular witness, he had been a cargo truck driver for over 17 years. And he's done plenty of trips in this particular airport and has never seen anything. Like, this was his first sighting of anything weird. And he had never seen anything related to any of the flying humanoids or aliens or anything that are in the area.
How strange.
Yeah. So what the hell's going on there, man?
I mean, apparently they just got fucking aliens walking around and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems to be this specific airport, specifically the United Terminal. There was a report back in November of 2006. I believe it was first reported by the Chicago Tribune, but I don't know, maybe it was out before then. But there was a sighting of what was described as a flying saucer-like object over Concourse C of the United Terminal. And it was seen by pilots, airline management, mechanics, and I believe even some of the passengers as well saw it. But it was a daytime sighting. It happened at 4:30 in the afternoon. And oddly, there's a lot of variety in the description. Some people said it was 6 feet wide, while others said it was 24 feet wide. Some said it looked like a spinning frisbee. Others said it wasn't spinning at all. It was sitting completely still. But it was, by most accounts, it was dark gray, and it was completely silent, and it was below 2,000 feet in the sky. They knew that because there was a layer of clouds at 1,900 feet, and this thing was underneath that cloud layer. And so a lot of people witnessed this thing, and out of nowhere, it just shot straight up through the clouds, and it left this big circular hole in the clouds. And nobody was able to get a picture of the craft itself, but there are pictures out there of the hole that it left in the clouds. And I know there is a natural phenomenon that's, I can't remember the scientific name for it, but they're called hole punch clouds. And it has to do with moisture in the atmosphere. And I think the way that the water crystals, or the water crystallizes in the sky, it creates these clouds that have holes in the middle of them. So it looks like something just kind of got punched through the cloud. And a lot of people, like a lot of the skeptics, saw this picture like, oh, that's a natural phenomenon, and then do a whole thing on what exactly it is. But what they're ignoring are all the witness reports of what happened.
Right.
And, I think if you were to see this cloud in the sky that has a hole in it, that's weird enough. You could just say, we saw this crazy cloud that had a hole in it, and then, speculate from there. But when you have all these witnesses, and among them pilots and mechanics, like they're all saying that they saw this craft and that there was actually something there. And then it left evidence by punching a fucking hole in the cloud. Like, planes don't punch holes in the clouds when they fly through them. What? How do you punch a hole in the fucking cloud? Like, that's like me saying, yeah, I'm going to go fight the ocean, and then I punch a hole in the ocean.
So you're saying it's United?
Yeah. United Airlines terminal is where this sighting took place. The other two, the most recent Mothman sighting and that sighting of the gray alien, took place at the United Cargo Terminal. And then that the other report of the weird flying egg-shaped craft that shot lights off and stole a dead body, that was not, I don't know where that took place, other than it took place over a cemetery that was on the grounds, but I don't know how close that is to the United areas.
Okay, I'm looking at a layout of O'Hare International Airport, and it seems like the whole southern half is United. Here, I'm going to send it to you real quick. I just want to see your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it is weird. The United terminal is kind of separated from the rest of the airport.
Right.
Yeah, we'll definitely we'll post a map of the airport in the show notes.
Yeah, luckily I just typed in O'Hare International Airport Mothman, and that came up because I'm not going to put map or layout into my search drive, then get taken away by Men in Black.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the international terminal, because that's the one that's kind of separated from all the other ones. But I don't know. It's
sorry, everyone. I just thought to look that up real quick, right in the middle of the show. Sorry.
Yeah, there's something definitely weird going on, though. And I wonder if the cemetery has anything to do with it at all, because I've doing a lot of research, I've noticed that there are, like, a lot of weird, like, not what you'd expect in especially old graveyards. Like, if you were expecting paranormal, like, typically it'd be like hauntings or something like that. But there seem to be a lot of reports of, like, reptilians, of dogmen, or werewolves or other weird, like, human beast hybrid animals that frequent cemetery areas. And sometimes they're digging, sometimes they're just hanging out there. So why not lump in Mothman and aliens with the cemetery as well? Maybe it's gonna be like a new age monster mash. You know, they're just trying to have a graveyard smash.
It says here it's Rest Haven Cemetery. The very first thing that pops up, the third least known cemetery.
The third least, like, how do you determine?
I don't know.
The least known cemeteries. Like, are you polling people and just being like, hey, have you ever heard of this cemetery? And the amount of people that say yes, like, I don't know, that's a weird claim. We are the third least known cemetery in all of the United States.
It's funny enough, it's from Chicago and CookCountyCemeteries.com. I'll take that out, but it sounds like they would know.
No, you will leave that in. Yeah. We are the authority on the popularity of cemeteries, and you will respect our authority in all manners as it relates to whether or not your cemetery is popular or totally lame. And this cemetery is the third most totally lame cemetery of all time. So it shall be! So with all this stuff with the Mothman and the Mothman especially, and the fact that it keeps showing up and lingering around and being spotted, like it really makes me worry for this airport. And if I ever have to fly there or fly, have a layover there or anything. Not that I fly, like I haven't been on a plane in like 15 years, but if I do, I don't want to go to this place, but I kind of do. Because I would like to see Mothman, but also because Mothman showing up, I'll probably die some horrific death because my luck is fucking terrible, generally speaking. And it would be just by luck. I would be flying in. I would be the fucking plane that crashes, but it would happen that I would see Mothman and be like, he does exist. And then like the propeller explodes and goes through my face or something.
You pull out your phone to text me, I'm seeing him.
Yeah. I hit turbulence and the phone goes in my mouth and it's lodged in my throat and I die gagging on it. Yeah. That's the luck that I would have. And then the plane would explode afterwards. After I made an ass of myself and everyone sees me gagging on a cell phone that's lodged in my throat. then the plane crashes after that. Like, oh, he choked and then shit himself. And then, please fasten your seatbelts. We're about to die.
We're about to die. Protocol states you need to be strapped in for death.
Yeah. Please strap in and prepare for death. Thank you very much. Good thing we have a very unpopular cemetery right below us.
The third most, in fact.
Yes, the third most lame cemetery. And then it just crashes there and
it's so unpopular nobody
beams over and sucks up the dead bodies. Yeah, free specimens again.
Well, it was built in the 1800s, so I mean, it being notably secluded or not frequented, I mean, it sounds like a good place to maybe have an underground base that links to the airport. I mean, I'm looking at pictures of it. There's an actual website, graveyards or grave. What, let me see. I just sent it to you. Graveyards.com.
Lamegraveyards.com.
No, but it's just regular graveyards.com. And the picture they show.
That's the website, regulargraveyards.com. Nothing weird here. These are perfectly regular graveyards.
But the picture of the airport or of the picture of the cemetery, like the sign in front of it, has an airplane taking off right behind it. So it's really close. Maybe it's...
Does it also have a picture of an airplane crashing into it?
No.
That's unfortunate.
So with everything that you're talking about, I'm saying it's a underground base deal like Denver. Something's going on there for sure. Why are they hanging around at the airport? And how is United involved?
Come on, United, spill the beans. Inquiring minds want to know. For that sighting that just happened recently, that the one that prompted all of this, there has been a Freedom of Information Act request filed against the TSA for this. Now, those things can get stuck in bureaucratic hell forever. So who knows if we'll ever get a follow-up on this, but the request has been filed, and most likely what the request is going to say is that they received a report of an intruder on the premises and the intruder escaped. Like some bullshit, like we approached the intruder and the intruder ran away or flew away. He's looking for William Shatner. The second William Shatner lands in Chicago International Airport, or I should say takes off from there, that's going to be when all hell breaks loose.
These are bizarre, man. I mean, these are authentic Mothman sightings, right?
Yeah, like just wait till you see all the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff, man. It's like it almost makes Point Pleasant look like fucking nothing.
Wow.
Like, it doesn't have the Woody Derenberger stuff involved, but like as far as Mothman sightings go, like it's unbelievable the amount of sightings, and they date back to 1957.
Holy crap. Yeah, everybody let us know if you want us to do that one next or wait a bit, because I want to hear about that. That's insane. 56.
Yeah. So I don't know. It makes me worry, especially with the amount of sightings over the past year that have occurred around the airport with the Mothman. And now his little buddy, the Gray.
Yeah. There's always been a steady stream of mainly what they call flying humanoids that I guess maybe some people are hesitant to report Mothman sighting. But when you read these reports, it's, a humanoid-shaped entity with wings. So, I mean, we can say it's Mothman. But the last year has really picked up. And since Mothman's a harbinger of doom or a sentinel of sorts, maybe to warn of some type of catastrophe, what do you think can go on there? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be centered around the airport or just Chicago?
I don't know, because it's so active around the airport. Like, it makes me wonder if it's going to be some sort of plane crash event.
Yikes.
Like maybe at the airport itself, or maybe a plane that's leaving from the airport. It's hard to say.
These are not Mike's predictions. These are going off historical events after Mothman is being seen around certain areas. So don't yell at us. He doesn't want a plane to crash. It's just what Mothman brings about.
It's just what Mothman does, man.
Yeah, I don't want to say
Mothman.
That. I think I
do. I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Mothman is a menace, and he needs to be stopped.
I see him as like a protector. Like, he's supposed to warn you. I mean, what?
Okay. Yeah, you probably fucking believe that web slinger is just a protector of the city too. I know that he's a goddamn menace as well. Why won't he show his face, Mateo? If he's so good, why won't he show his face?
Because of people like you. You'll lock him up.
There wouldn't be people like me if he'd show his face and didn't break shit everywhere. And that goes for you too, Mothman. Show your face and quit fucking shit up. What's behind those red eyes, Mothman?
It's so crazy to hear so many sightings like this. Mothman seems to really be back.
You say he seems to really be back. I would argue that he never left. He just moved.
Just moved to...
Yeah, he's like, you know what? Fuck you, Virginia, West Virginia. You can suck my Mothman ass.
It's too hot
I'm
here.
gonna fly myself to Chicago, and I'm gonna hang out at the airport, and that's what he does. And then every now and again, he goes and flies over Lake Michigan because he's like, you know what? I think I deserve a little vacation. I'm gonna go hang out at the lake.
I love to fish, believe it or not.
He does. He likes to scuba dive and check out the shipwrecks.
He says, I'm a part-time spelunker hobbyist.
Yeah, yes. I'm an amateur diver, and I enjoy looking at crashed ships. Maybe he's just admiring his handiwork because he's a goddamn menace, and he's always been a menace. For hundreds of years, he's been menacing the waters. He's worse than any goddamn hippopotamus or sea monster that ever existed. You're never safe from Mothman, whether it's land, sea, or air. He will sink you, explode you, or destroy your face.
Or all of the above at the same time.
At the same time.
I wish we...
You think it's a coincidence that he drowned all those people on the Silver Bridge? He was laughing with maniacal glee. He knew what was going to happen.
I think he was trying to drive them away. I think he was... I mean, it's a big, scary monster. They're gonna...
Yeah, you would say that.
Yeah.
Mothman sympathizer.
So aliens running around too. What do you think that means after all the UAP that stuff that's come out? I mean, a couple of these stories I feel like we should have heard of a long time ago, but I mean they're all pretty fucking recent. But if all the UFO stuff is true, what does it mean when people are seeing shit like this?
I don't know. It's the same as it ever was when people report this stuff. You know, it's their story versus skeptics, and that's it. And then you'll have people on both sides believing 100% what these people are saying, or completely bullshitting over them because of one small point that a skeptic makes.
Right. It seems to be that a lot of people who are able to connect a couple things, like the hole punch clouds, like you said, just get overly excited that there's something that's close that could actually be an explanation before. Like you said, I think you worded it well when you said that they're ignoring all these reports from rather credible people.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that they're ignoring the fact that so many other people reported it.
Right.
Reported seeing something, and they're just looking at this one bit of evidence, that being the hole in the clouds, and saying, well, we can explain that based on natural phenomena. But how do you explain it in relation to that large group of people that are reporting seeing this craft
over years now with the flying humanoids?
Yeah, but that one specifically, with the UFO, like, come on. Yeah, you can explain the thing, but when you've got all these people reporting that they actually witnessed what caused it and it wasn't natural phenomenon, like, maybe look into it a little further. You got fucking pilots. If we can't trust pilots to report what they're seeing in the sky, who the fuck can we trust?
Right. Well, I mean,
like you're qualified enough to fly this iron bird through the air that has no right to be up there, and yet here it is, and you're responsible for the lives of, dozens, if not hundreds of people, and you can't be trusted to report what you're seeing? Like, what were they seeing? They said it was a gray disc-shaped craft that punched a hole in the cloud. I don't know. It does get frustrating whenever, especially mass sightings, when they get completely discounted, because it's a mass sighting. You've got a large group of people, and I know that human memory is flawed, and I think that's what accounts for a lot of the variances in reporting. But when you've got all these people that all saw the same thing, and they're all reporting, at least similar reports. Some reported seeing the craft spin. Some said it stayed still. They're all saying it was a gray disc and that it flew up through the fucking clouds. So if you can't buy that, I don't know what else you need to, because then you'd be like, oh, well, if someone had a video, well, that's just one video. It could be doctored, blah, blah, blah. Some people just are never happy. They're never satisfied unless you actually put an alien spacecraft in front of them and let them rub their balls on it.
We need to take them to O'Hare Airport and let them meet Bugman. Good old Bug Eyes.
Yeah, they can rub their balls on Bug Eyes.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.